everyone. Hopefully you're here for the Financial Wellness Center's February workshop with Aunt Kara. So before we get going, I'll just give a little bit of information about us and then I'll read her bio and pass it over to her. So we're located in room 317 in the Union. Obviously with COVID, no one can really be there, but feel free to check out our website. We have all sorts of great resources on there, like a million PDFs and documents and YouTube videos, all great resources. Make sure to check those out. We also offer financial counseling appointments. You can still schedule those. We do those over Zoom. And then with tax season around the corner, we're doing tax services for free. So make sure to get those appointments booked as well. So those are all great resources. Please check those out. So let's introduce our speaker here. And I almost forgot. If you stay all the way through the end of the workshop and fill out the survey at the end, we're doing a $25 Amazon gift card giveaway. So make sure to fill that out and hopefully you can win one of those. So Kara Green, aka Aunt Kara on Instagram, enjoys discussing all things personal finance. You can find her on Instagram at Aunt Kara, sharing her wisdom and experience with money as a way to encourage others, including her own nieces and nephews, to make smart financial decisions and build wealth. She attributes her debt-free wealth-building lifestyle to her money mindset. With 2 homes paid off, 2 529 college savings accounts fully funded, and annual retirement contributions maxed, she and her husband Mark have built a financially stress-free life for themselves. Kara is a firm believer in living beneath her means, resisting the temptations of keeping up with the Joneses, focusing on long-term goals and still having fun along the way. She loves to travel, so much so that she learned how to do it at a fraction of the cost. Over the last 8 years, Kara has saved over $65,000 by travel hacking, a topic she discusses weekly on her Instagram account. Kara lives in the Midwest and is a wife of 26 years, a mom of 2 teenagers, and an aunt of millennials. She has both a bachelor's and master's degree in IT and is in her 26th year of a career in corporate IT. Although she is not work optional yet, she will get there before the traditional retirement age of 60 to 65. She loves beaches, summer, her family, 80s music, and her dog Lucy. Not necessarily in that order. All right, Kara, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Matt. So hi, everybody. Thanks for the intro. I am Kara Green. I do live in the Midwest. I'll talk a little bit more about some of, my experience, but I am excited and I thank you for inviting me here. I'm excited to talk about couples and money because it's a topic that I think is super, super important to so many people. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about why. So let me share my screen here and get this presentation going. So, all right. And I'll say, Ashley and Matt, if something comes up, any technical issues or something like that, feel free to just jump in and interrupt if something isn't coming through or it's not displaying right or there's an audio issue or video, because sometimes I just get in the moment and I don't pay attention to what's happening. So just let me know. All right. So the topic again for today is couples and money. And what I'm going to do is go through 7 money practices that I think you should consider in your relationship. So sometimes I talk about this on Instagram and I talk about it more in, from a marriage perspective. However, there's probably many of you that are watching this right now that aren't married. And I would say knowing some of these things even ahead of marriage is, you're going to have one leg up on it. So, honestly, they apply to just, any type of couple, any type of relationship. So, I slip into saying marriage and money, but honestly, it's any type of relationship before, or during marriage. All right, let me go through here. So, let me get this off. I have something in my screen I need to move. Okay. So the way that I'm going to go through this is really share some of my personal experiences with my own relationship and really tell you more about why I think myself and my husband, Mark, have been successful in avoiding some of the stress and the tension that many relationships have. Again, I've got to move something else off the screen, get out of my way. All right. And, you know, there may be some things that you agree with as I talk about them, and maybe things that you say, no way, I'm not interested in that. And that's not how, you know, I'm going to be with my money and my relationships. And that's okay too, because what I've done is provided you some food for thought, and it either, you know, strengthens the way you currently feel, or potentially opens up, you know, your mind to a different approach, or something that you really hadn't thought about before when it comes to like getting into a relationship and how you're going to talk about money and personal finance with your significant other. So it doesn't mean you need to agree with all 7 of these. I can just tell you what's worked for me. But as you reflect and decide what you want and how you want to manage your money with, you know, your significant other, I think this is a good way to foster those thoughts and begin those conversations. So feel free to take notes as I'm sharing this today, and maybe this is a good conversation starter even with you know, with your significant other, and saying, hey, I listened to this presentation today, and here's what she said, and what do you think? It might be a good way to even enter some of those conversations. All right. Let's go. So again, relationships are important. This is why I'm talking about this topic. You know, relationships are people. It's what you deal with every single day, right? When you make commitments to people, and, you know, they're your husbands, your wives, your best friends, you know, that's a priority in life in general. And keeping those healthy, those relationships healthy is super important. But also money is important. We know that, you know, money propels the things that you do in your life, and you know, they're intertwined every single day. And making sure that you are intentional about your decisions around these things is very important. You have to be thoughtful with both topics, and as I've said here, they're both complicated. They're both emotional in nature, right? There's a lot of different things that happen outside of money conversations and relationships that make things complicated and emotional, but money is the same way. There's a lot of good and bad with money, and there's some really, you know, deep feelings, and whether there are things that you've learned or things you've experienced, and really, you know, addressing these things should be at the top of the list as you're developing your relationships, maintaining your relationships. It's a sensitive subject. There are many people, as you probably know, outside of just the whole relationship aspect, that feel like money is a very taboo topic. People get competitive about money. You know, how much do you make? How much do I make? They get jealous of each other. You're able to do more things and have more fun than I can because I don't make as much money. You know, people get insecure and embarrassed. When people don't manage their money well, or have made some bad financial decisions, they tend to hide them because it's embarrassing. It's humbling. People get insecure about that. And again, you know, like I said, money gets emotional. It's the similar how people put on a front that they are in some great relationship and how much they love each other and how healthy everything is. People do the same thing with money, and put on a front and pretend that, you know, things are going better than they really are behind the scenes. There's so many parallels between the two. And I think that's why, again, like being thoughtful about this and talking about it is just really, really important to keep both of those topics healthy. So, you know, when you don't, and you know, I'm 49 years old, right? I've seen a lot of relationships, some people that were very close to me, and you know, friends and coworkers, and money and relationships have created a lot of, I'll say, undesirable challenges in people's lives because they haven't been addressed in the right way, or haven't been addressed at all. So, like I said, I feel really passionate. I talk a lot about different personal finance things over on Instagram, but money and relationships is like one of the things at the top of my list. So I'm, again, so glad that this is the topic I get to talk to you all about, because these are things I think I would have loved to hear years ago when I was in college. So, all right. And if I haven't convinced you yet how important this topic is, here's just a little piece of data from marketwatch.com. So they basically said that 41% of divorced Gen Xers and 29% of boomers said they ended their marriage due to disagreements about money. So again, to the point of, even when you aren't in a marriage, if you're arguing early in your relationship about money, you better figure out if you can get this addressed prior to marriage, because it could be the number one predictor of whether or not you're going to end up together or divorced. So again, this is my final, pitch to say, guys, this is really, really important. All right. I hope you're convinced. Okay, so this is just really what Matt went over, who I am. My name's Kara. I live in the Midwest. Even though my profession is actually in technology, it has been for 26 years. I love to talk about personal finance. I have 7 nieces and nephews. The youngest is 17, the oldest is 29, and I am very close to all of them. And when I created an Instagram account, it was a way for me to be able to reach out to them with words of wisdom, as we've all kind of gone our separate ways, because again, most of them are in their 20s, and share some of the things that I used to share with them in person, but now they're at a different stage of life. The things I shared with them when they were younger aren't the same things I share with them now, but they do come to me for advice. And I thought, I'll get on a platform that they're all on, they all follow me. I'll keep it public and open to everyone else, and, help tell them what some of the things that I've learned along the way. So really, that's where the whole Aunt Kara came from. And then since then, I've had thousands and thousands of other people follow me and seem to find some value in my content as well. So personal finance is what I love to talk about. I did mention I love to talk about travel hacking as well. That's something I do every Tuesday. I do a separate post for that and do some fun stuff with free travel and points and miles. But, having a debt-free life that my husband and I were able to achieve and continuing to build wealth is something I'm very proud of, and something I want others to experience as well. I do think a lot of it is mindset and just the way that you look at money, and the decisions you make are made for yourself, not to impress others, not to be something you think you should be, and being thoughtful, looking long term in, where you want to be in the future and what kind of life you want to live. We've achieved all kinds of stuff. We've had 26 years to do it, with our homes paid off now. I have a son that's going to college next year. His 4 years of tuition at a public state school already taken care of through a 529 plan that we have been contributing to since the day he was born. I have a daughter as well, who's pictured here, and she's a freshman in high school. We're in the same situation. Her account is fully funded as well. And we've just been really intentional with our money all along, and trying to make good decisions along the way, and recognizing what we wanted for our future, as well as, the kind of life we want to live day to day as well. So a big part of that is living beneath your means, which again, I talk a heck of a lot about on Instagram. And it's something that I think goes a long way, and it's hard to do, but it pays off in the end. So that's a picture of my husband and I from this summer on one of our anniversary dates, actually, 26 years. That was our 26th anniversary picture when we went out. And then that was a picture from the summer with on my birthday, actually, from just last summer. So anyway, that's about me. All right. Okay, so I told you we're going to talk about the 7 money practices. And so let's just start with the very first one. So the very first one is absolutely essential, and it's envisioning your future together. So when you think, when you're in a relationship and you think about, where are we going to be a year from now? What are we going to be doing, 5, 10, 20 years from now? Money is a part of that. So it's not just, what's the status of your relationship? and how many kids are we going to have, and where are we going to work? What's our career choice? You also have to think about financially, what is that going to take to get there? So it isn't just about the type of house you want to pick out or the type of car you want to drive. It's really about what you want to experience day to day. Your money, like I said, your money impacts your present and your future. And, when you sit down together and say, where do we want to be? You can then, again, align those financial goals with the other pieces of where you want to be and what you want to be doing and what you want your life to look like. These are discussions that you want to be sure you are on the same page. You want to be aligned here, and knowing what those are will really keep you grounded and motivated as things come up along the way. You do need to kind of know where you need to know the destination and where you're going, as to help guide those everyday decisions, or you can get off track pretty easily. It's easy to slip off track financially if you really don't know where you're going, but you want to do those things together and be on the same page. It really is essential to do that. So that's my number one money practice, is to make sure you guys are on the same page with what you want in your future, even financially. Okay, now number two. Number two is about creating this financial foundation. So, you've got your goal out there of what you want to be and where you want to go and what kind of life you want to live. But in order to put that into practice, you really have to create this foundation of how we're going to operate day to day with our money. And, a budget is absolutely the number one fundamental thing that everyone needs to be doing with their money. And that's something, again, you're doing together. You're sitting down and looking at what you have to work with and where your money will be going. And when I say where your money will be going, that should then align with your goals. Whether it's, the basic necessities of paying your bills, but then when that's all said and done and you have other money, where are you putting that other money? Where is it going? Are you saving it? Are you spending it? Are you investing it? What are you saving for? So, establishing the budget and putting boundaries and really control around your money every single month really gets you guys grounded and in a rhythm to to achieve the goals that you're working towards. So the consistent routine and being intentional and planning and making sure that you can afford the life that you're planning is absolutely a necessity. So with that, I talked about roles. And I'll talk a little bit more about roles in a minute, but your agreed upon roles. So when I talk about establishing a budget, and again, I'm going to say this later, but there's people who say, well, I'm just going to leave that to the other person in my relationship. There's some components that's okay, that, some people play, one person, I play some, certain role in my relationship, and Mark plays, other roles with our money in our relationship. But you do need to make sure you both agree who is doing what, who has oversight of this. And again, it's just this foundational type of setup with your money, that you understand where you are every month, and you have that assurance that you know where your money's going. And that you can afford the life you're living, because you absolutely want to make sure that's the case. Okay. Yeah, I said winging it is not an option. It's not we'll just see how much money we have at the end of the month and then figure it out from there. That's not a good practice. Be intentional with your money every single month, and do that together. Okay. Number 3. All right. Operate as a financial team. So I talked a little about roles. Recognize that that money management is a shared responsibility, and that you are a team. When you are a couple and you've made a commitment to someone else, and your your money needs to align with that as a couple and support those goals you made as a team. But everybody needs to pull their weight on this team, right? So it is something that you both need to constantly be accountable for. And that's hard for people. So being accountable for someone else's actions and choices when it comes to money, that doesn't happen as easily as, you know, I might be implying it can. And that's where you run into some trouble, right? But if you don't do that, you will see some of the tension and the stress. That's when things start bubbling up. You know, I know with my own husband, when he makes choices and actions, that you know, right or wrong, I have to take ownership of that as well, because we are working with our money. We have mutually agreed upon goals. We're working towards those together, and our actions should align with those. But as we all know, sometimes mistakes are made. Sometimes we don't make the best financial decision. Maybe we shouldn't have invested in something we thought was a good idea. Or we spent more than we expected to spend per our budget in a particular month, and now we've got a little bit of a challenge and an issue to address. You know, there's no doubt you need to show grace, because I can tell you, you know, everyone makes mistakes, and they'll happen more than once in 26 years. You know, nobody's with my situation, nobody's perfect, right? So understanding, look, it happens, mistakes are made, let's figure out how to address it and move on, learn from the lesson, but don't hold that against each other, right? So it is pure teamwork, and it's a shared mentality along the way. And again, there are some people out there that say, that's not how I'm managing my money. Mine's going to be mine. Theirs is going to be theirs. We'll figure out who pays what and we'll move on. I know a lot of people that are out there that do that, but I can tell you they haven't made the financial progress that Mark and I have as we've worked as a team. You're going to get a whole lot more bang for your buck, no pun intended, when you work together. Then separate your finances and try to manage things independently, because a lot of things get lost in the cracks that way, for lack of better words, and money is unaccounted for. And then that's where some things bubble up to be a little bit of an issue, and questioning, are you really aligned on what you're trying to accomplish financially? Okay, tough talk there, right? No, not everybody likes to hear that. All right, and even tougher, I'm going to go even deeper on this subject. So this is number 4. And here's a real sensitive one, especially for those who are of you guys that are getting ready to graduate from college and have your first real job making real money. You're really proud of that, right? And you want to hold on tight to that, because it's an amazing feeling. I haven't forgotten what it felt like to get my first real paycheck after I got out of grad school. Do not let your individual incomes define your financial rights. So the thing is if you're in a committed relationship, right? And again, I talk a lot about marriage more so than just couples in general. But if it is, when I say couples, I mean, I'm assuming it's a committed relationship that eventually is going to end up in marriage or whatever. You've got to release that or give up that feeling of, you know, I make more, so I deserve more, I get to spend more. And you look at each other as individuals and not as competitors, I'll say, but just as not, you know, one team working on the same goal. Money and managing money and the decisions you will make in your life that money impacts or that impact money, it's much more than income. So my second bullet here about saying income does not determine who has more of a financial say in decisions. Understand, I'm saying this and coming to you from a perspective where I have always made more money than my husband. Sometimes it's a lot more, sometimes it's not a lot more. And I'm saying I've never looked at my income as my income. I've looked at it as our income. It doesn't define your worth to the relationship, your impact to the relationship, You have different roles and responsibilities. There's give and take. There are sacrifices that one individual may be making so the other one can do something like make more money because they're in maybe a better industry as far as financially that's more lucrative. Yet you are a team. And especially as you build a family, roles and responsibilities, there are so many there, and income is just one piece of the pie. It does not drive the financial decisions. It doesn't say that you are not 50-50 anymore. And that is a very hard thing for people to get over. If there is the thought that that becomes an issue, where there's resentment and competition and entitlement and saying, I should be able to, again, spend more because I make more. You don't have the right because, you're staying home with the kids right now. You don't even contribute financially to this relationship. There's something deeper that needs to be addressed in the relationship. It's more than money. There's more there. And it leads, into my final point of financial abuse, which honestly has been being talked about more these days than I've ever heard it before in relationships, where it's very much income means control in a relationship, and it means that one person is in charge and the other person is at the mercy of the person who makes more money. And that's an unhealthy relationship in itself. And so this is probably one of the biggest challenges I've seen over the years. However, again, as you get older, as you have healthy relationships and you build your family and you see how each other contributes so much to the bigger picture of your life, the income component, honestly, is just one slice of many of the value you bring to, what you contribute to your family. So this one will be interesting to, if you have any questions or feedback or want to challenge that thinking as we open this up to some questions at the end of this presentation. But I just want to put that out there again. And I'm putting that out there as being the breadwinner of the relationship for 26 years. And I feel that way. Never once have I thought I had any more rights than Mark because I made more money. I think that's ridiculous, right? Okay. So let's go to number 5. Okay, this one's a lot lighter. Those are the tough topics. So the 5th one is maintain full visibility to all financial responsibilities. Okay, again, teamwork, right? You need to know, whether you're responsible for it or not, how to view every financial account that the two of you have. It doesn't matter what your role is. You need to know what's happening with your money. Mark plays a role where he is paying all the bills. He's tracking all of our insurance policies. He's paying the taxes. He does our taxes every single year. He's even negotiating when our insurance goes up and trying to find better deals. There's all kinds of roles in managing money that I don't do in our relationship, but I need to know how he's doing it. I need to know how to access these things. I need to know what companies have our policies. And then same thing, I really manage more of the investment side. That does not mean that Mark doesn't know how to log into Fidelity or Vanguard or doesn't know how much money's in there at all. It just means I'm kind of like the main person for that. But absolutely, saying, well, that's not my thing, that's my husband's thing, or that's my wife's thing, that doesn't cut it. You still have to be aware. You have to understand it. Have to know how to view it, get into it, touch it, and a really good way, and people don't love this, but again, this is just, learning and developing and being better at money as a couple, taking your turns on the roles. Way back when, I used to do all the bills and Mark did other things. Then I don't know, when I started traveling for my job or whatever, that became a little harder to do and coordinate. And so he took that over as the role. But, the whole walk in another person's shoes, so you appreciate what they do, you'll really gain more respect for some of the challenges they have to go through when they're reconciling, expenses or managing the budget or setting the budget. it's good to take turns and really get a feel for all the pieces and the roles that are required in a relationship to manage money. Again, it's beyond a budget and income. There's a lot of details that need to be handled day to day. All right, let's get to number 6. All right, so I was preaching team, right? You're in it together. You got to do everything together. However, understanding and respecting each other's individual interests is just as valuable. Okay, so I know I say you maybe a couple, but you have unique hobbies and interests and needs. You have you have things that are important to you that may not be important to your significant other, and you need to allow for that financially. So planning and budgeting, that's what supports those independent interests. So something like an allowance system, which is something that Mark and I did way back when we were in our 20s, helped us have some freedom that each week we would take out a set amount of money. We'd take it out of the ATM in cash, and he could do whatever he wanted with his amount, and I did whatever I wanted with mine. They were absolutely equal. And then it honestly saves so much in the judgment and criticism and questioning of, how could you spend that much money on golf? And then he turns to me and says, how could you spend that much money on, decorations for our house, and us not, saying we thought the other was making a bad decision with our money. It's like this, it's kind of this fun money, discretionary type of fund that you can do whatever you want with. No judgment, no strings attached. And that went a long way, especially in our early years when budgets were tighter, that we didn't even have to have those conversations, and if I wanted to stash my money away for a few weeks so I could save up for something big that he thought was so ridiculous, he didn't care. I was staying within my boundaries of my budget and my fun money. There was no judgment. Same thing with him. So it helps a lot that you're respecting each other's interests and saying, I don't get it, but go ahead and spend your money on it, because, there were boundaries around that. So I think it is an awesome exercise to do from day one. It keeps things under control. And I can't give you exactly the amount that I think is appropriate. That's something you have to figure out based on how much discretionary money you even have to work with. But I do insist it's equal. And again, no strings attached, no judgment. So it's something that is it's actually a fun, nice thing to do. And it still does make you feel like you are making your own independent choices with the things that are valuable to you. All right, and then my final one is another fun one. All right, so the final practice is celebrating your financial accomplishments together. All right, so it's work together, and manage this money tightly and make good decisions, right? But you set out a lot of goals, and as you achieve those goals, you should be celebrating those wins, and you should be doing it together. There's nothing like this reinforcement of, look what we did together, when you get to celebrate, some of these things. So whether it's a big milestone or a big achievement, or a smaller milestone, you're halfway through, saving up for something, you can look at each other and say, we did it, we're on track. And it just reinforces and strengthens, that alignment and your connections back to what your goals are. It's really a solid approach to strengthening just even your relationship in general, and saying, we do make a great team and we're doing a great job. So those celebrations, absolutely need to be together, whether it's a nice dinner somewhere, or just some kind of fun date, or some purchase that both of you guys can enjoy. It's a really good thing to celebrate and recognize what you have accomplished. So that was number 7. All right. So I told you I would give you time to ask any type of questions, or give me even feedback on really what you know, how you feel about what I've shared on these 7 money practices, or if you have your own story or examples of something that you feel like would be, you know, good to add to this, you know, conversation, this is the time to do it. I want to make this interactive if we can. Hopefully we've got an interactive audience. All right. Ashley or Matt, are you facilitating the questions at all, or should I be clicking on them?
Yeah, so I can see one in the Q&A. It says, how can I motivate my wife to be interested in our finances? Every time the topic comes up, she tells me that she trusts me with handling it.
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, let me think about this. Well, I don't know enough about the goals, but I think the goals that you have, let me stop sharing this for a second. I think that the more that you can guide her to some of the goals and tracking the progress towards your goals, that could be a way to stay motivated. So sometimes, you know, as much as you want someone to be more involved and have them, you know, understand what you do and what you're looking at, it's just too much for for them. But everybody's motivated by what it's ultimately going to accomplish. So if you have particular savings goals, or, you know, on Instagram, in the personal finance community, a lot of people track things like, you know, they have debt-free journeys where they track, you know, when they're going to be truly debt-free, or when they're going to have their mortgage paid off, or when they're going to have enough money to, you know, put a down payment on a house. Potentially tracking progress towards something, towards these goals that you have together, may be another approach than just, you know, showing spreadsheets and things, but trying to get her involved in seeing the progress that you're making. I hope that's helpful in you know, some other method to say, maybe you could help measure our progress towards the goals. I won't make you, you know, do all the number crunching, but it also helps them understand too the impact of their decisions. So the reason why you have goals is because you want your decisions to align with it. And if you're out spending money on something else that's slowing you down on achieving those goals, like making that connection can be motivation as well. So I feel like talking more about the bigger goals may bring her in potentially. Just a thought, not knowing a lot of the details behind how you guys manage money, obviously. I hope that helps. Okay, I'm seeing the questions now, so I'll go down to this next one. This one says, what are your thoughts on shared and personal bank accounts for couples? Okay, so I tried to like not specifically say this, but it was probably implied. I would say when you are married, I would absolutely be sharing every single account, that I would have shared accounts. Mark and I have never had separate bank accounts ever. Now, when you are simply a couple and not in a committed legal relationship, I don't think that I would think it was necessary to have shared accounts. But there, to me, is a difference in the level of commitment in a marriage versus just, you know, being a long-term couple. I think when you make that commitment to marriage, this is full-blown team mode. And in the team mode, you're having shared accounts. One, you have more visibility. And two, pooling that money together and being accountable again for both what you're spending and what your significant other is spending is necessary for success. You have to be aligned. And to be aligned, I feel like the money needs to be together. I think a lot of people have an issue with this and don't agree. And that's okay. I know it's worked for us. And, you know, 26 years, and I will truly say money has never, ever been an issue of contention with us. It hasn't been. We're in a happy marriage. And when we have challenges and disputes and we don't agree on everything, it never has anything to do with money, which is such a luxury, but this is the way we've done it, and it's worked out very well. But we look at each other as equals in every way, money, no money, and we also say this is this is ours together. So that goes all the way down to our bank accounts. All right, I was long-winded on that, but it's an important point. Talking about finances stresses my partner out. How can we talk about finances? Well, so again, not knowing all the details of the stresses themselves. Hold on one second. I'm going to just need to pause for one quick.
I'll interject here, everyone. I don't know that you can see my video, but my name is Ashley. I'm one of the financial counselors. And in just a second, I'll be sending out a follow-up survey. So if you wouldn't mind filling that out and just giving us some feedback about the workshop today, then that would be great. And I'll go ahead and put that in the chat.
Okay, I am sorry about this. This is, you know, working from home, and we have a lot going on. We have a full house, of course, between a blizzard and a pandemic. So there's always lots of commotion going on here. So understanding, I guess, why it's the question about talking about finances really stresses my partner out. How can we talk about finances in a less stress-inducing way? Trying to get to the root of why it's so stressful. I mean, usually it's stressful because people think they don't have enough money to cover everything they need to cover. I mean, that's what I've seen. And there are a lot of times where I've even sat down with people too and put it out on paper and said, you have nothing to worry about when you see what your expenses are, what your income is. And it's actually like a big relief. I think maybe, you know, laying out the facts, right, can put a lot of things at ease. Now, that of course implies a budget, right? And people talk about this as well, is letting people understand how much money they really have to work with is also very freeing to people. So people think budgets mean you can't do this, you can't do this. It's very much a constraint. But in your budget itself, you know, you also hopefully have a line item for discretionary purchases and decisions and things. And you know, once you see that, and again, you work within your boundaries, you spend within your boundaries, you realize, hey, I'm in really good shape. I have enough money to cover all the necessities, and I get to have some fun as well. But you know your limits of how much fun you can have, how much you can spend. So I think maybe laying out the facts could be potentially, you know, the best idea. But you do need to probably dig deeper on what is so stressful about talking about those finances. All right, let me look at this. Okay, so here's a couple questions. And let me ask, Ashley, can everyone see the questions besides me, or am I just reading them?
Do you know what? I actually don't know, because I'm technically a host too.
Oh, okay.
And somebody put in the chat if you can see the questions. I think from my previous experience, you can see them as a participant. But I think it's also helpful to just read it out loud too.
Yeah, I was just making sure. Okay, all right.
Perfect.
Okay, so this question from Sarah is, logistically, how do you share passwords to accounts, look at finances? Do you share spreadsheets, sit down together, do a budget meeting? How often? You mentioned each have roles. So budget meetings, very popular. You know, doing something prior to a month beginning and sitting down and saying, again, here's my dog's going. What do we have to work with? And then at the end of the month, reconciling that and saying, how did we do? I do think you need to look at that together. Now, I think one person can sit down and do all the math and go through the numbers and then present it to the other individual. That's kind of how I do it. Like, we don't actually sit down together and write them out and review. I usually like put it together and then we sit down and look through it. As far as like sharing passwords to account and looking at finances, I don't have that. Like, I do have all of our passwords in one place. And it's really, you know, this is really something that just once, you know, you kind of need to do once to make sure that everybody knows how to access everything. And then it's up to you how often you want to check in on things and how often your partner wants to check in on things. So I think it's very dependent. Okay, I don't see the questions. All right. So I think it's very, dependent on how active you want to be in those accounts, like what's necessary. But absolutely, I have like a big master list of passwords to all of our accounts, and we both can access that list so we can look at it whenever we want. But budget meetings and sitting down together, yes, but I think probably someone needs to do it on their own first and then present it to the other person and go through. Again, I think twice a month is the right way to do it. Before the month begins, set up what you need to do, and then after the month ends, then you're doing the review and saying, what do we need to work on? Where did we do a great job? What do we need to work on? What did we miscalculate or misestimate? Maybe we went way over on a particular utility bill that we didn't think was as much as it was. So how do we adjust that? That visibility is very, very important. And doing that consistently, month after month after month, at the beginning of a relationship, a marriage, or whatever, is even more important. I will say Mark and I don't do that as much anymore because we are in this rhythm of like our expenses are so set. We're kind of in autopilot mode. But those early years, we were all over it. We had spreadsheets out all the time and reviewing and checking and doing that consistently. So, okay, hope that helps. For those who aren't married, what would you recommend for unmarried couples? I've had bad experience with ex, terrible with money. Well, that's good. They're your exes then. Okay. They've been terrible with money. It made me wary to share finances with husband while we were dating. And that happens that you bring, you bring some of the baggage from previous experiences and relationships and hangups, or even the way you were raised, the way people saw their parents manage money can sometimes even be brought into your own marriage and relationship. And you have to step back and say, but what do I want? And what do we need? And, what was good and bad of what I saw? When would you recommend that you share finances? I would say, when you felt you were at the point of potentially, becoming engaged with someone, I mean, I would want to know before I was even engaged, really, what their view was about money. But I think that the good way to start out these conversations is back to my 7 tips, is talk about your goals, which you should be doing anyway before you get engaged and get married. And you can tie money into that. So if someone's saying, I want to live in New York City and I want to have 3 kids and whatever else. And then, you can talk about what that implies to finances, that will require a lot of income. What's your expectations around money, and how long until that life happens? Do you have debt that we would need to pay off before we get to that point of being able to afford to do that? Like, you weave it into the conversations of the goals themselves is really what I would advise. If I'd been dating someone for a few months and whatever, I don't think I'd get into all the money stuff at that point. But when you think, hey, this could be the person I'm going to be with for a long time, you better understand what their mindset is when it comes to money. And then you share how you believe, because if those things aren't aligned, you're going to have a lot of trouble down the road, and it's good to get it out. I don't know that you have to, and as the relationship gets deeper, Mark and I were always very open, even before we were married, and with how much we made, whether or not we had debt, how much we wanted to make and where we wanted to be. Like, we did that all before we were married, for sure. Prior to even being engaged, but we dated for a long time too before that happened. All right. I hope that helps. Okay. So this is a question to me. You mentioned that you maximize your contributions to your retirement account. What retirement accounts do you have, and how do you distribute your money across them? Okay. So this is just a personal finance question. I have a 401k account because I've worked in corporate jobs in global companies my entire career. And then I also have an IRA, and then my husband also has an IRA. He is self-employed. He is a real estate broker. And so he has not had, he did have a 401k way back when. Then when he wasn't working there anymore, when he left, he rolled it over into an IRA. So we have IRAs and 401ks. Absolutely, I max them every year. This year is going to be even a bit, a bigger year because I turned 50 this year. And in the year that you turn 50, your contributions are allowed to increase. So the federal law changes. So we're going to be even putting more money, and my husband turns 50 as well, into our retirement accounts. But I am all for maximizing retirement accounts, and so glad that I felt that way, long ago. Now in my early years, I did enough to get the contribution matching, which I firmly believe you should always be contributing enough to get your contribution matching from the companies that you work for. And you need to figure out how to make it happen. Even if you're like, but I really need that extra $50 because of this or that, we'll figure out some other way to earn an extra $50, because the money that they match is part of your compensation plan. And you are leaving money on the table when you don't take that money from them. So, I get that you don't have it in hand when they match it. You can't access it till you're older, but as someone who is now like getting closer to that time where I can access my money, thank goodness I made those decisions back then. So I didn't max out my retirement accounts in those years. I could have never afforded to do that, but I always did the contribution matching, which a lot of companies allow up to a certain percent. It could be 2%, 3%, 4%, 5% of your salary. They'll say, we're going to contribute that into your 401k plan. And as long as you contribute that same amount, and then if you work for our company, usually for 3 to 5 years, then it's all yours when you're old and retired. So that's what the maximizing and contribution matching is all about. But those are the type of accounts I have. And then I have the IRAs as well. And I pick different mutual funds and index funds within those plans to earn money and really get the interest on that money. Okay. Did COVID-19 affect my finances in any way? No. And I am so lucky, so blessed that 2020 did not have any type of negative effect. In fact, because Mark is in the real estate market, and real estate is so crazy hot right now that 2020 was really good to us. He had an increase in his income last year because the real estate market was so hot. My industry isn't an industry that was not affected by COVID. Our company performance was very strong. So we didn't have that. Unfortunately, a lot of other people do. And I've seen that. They're close to me. So I don't have any story around that particular question. What are your tips for someone who is such a frugal spender and saver to accept and adjust their partner who spends freely? How can we meet halfway? You need to meet halfway. So, people always say there's a spender and a saver in the relationship, and I get that. And, Mark would probably say that I am I'm the spender and I'm not even, very spendy, and he's the saver. This is where you get into that topic of having allowances. And I know it might seem cheesy. I mean, we had friends, and I said this on a live stream I did on Instagram. We had friends in our 20s that would totally make fun of us, like really harass us about that we had allowances. And they would make it the biggest joke that if I'd say I couldn't go do something with one of my friends, or, not this week at least, I want to do it next week or something because I already used my allowance. They would roll their eyes and be like, you're ridiculous, right? And none of them at this point in my life roll their eyes at me when it comes to money management. They get it now, but it took a while. And so the whole concept of creating boundaries that, and I've seen this happen too, that people will laugh because they'll say, yes, we each get X dollars a week to spend however we want. And again, you need to do that you need to do that in cash, where it's money in hand, because if you're doing it through a credit card or a debit card, it isn't as controlled and it isn't monitored. So cash in hand, say every Friday you get X amount of dollars, let that be your significant other's spending money when they like to spend money freely. And then your money where you're like, I don't really even need this much, but I still believe you need to have equal amounts. Just stuff it away and save it for something else. I mean, you have the right to spend it or save it, right? But it's your little bucket of money. I do think that that's the only way you're going to make progress again on those bigger goals. You should be budgeting, first of all, with this question of how to accept and adjust their partner. So you should create a budget. Then within that budget, create those boundaries for your partner who spends freely. But create those own boundaries for yourself too. Trust me, even if you say, I don't need that much money, you've got to remain equal and have the same type of rights that they do, because something will come along one day and you will be resentful that you didn't take that money, and this, you know, your partner has been spending money all this time, and the one time you finally want something that's kind of bigger, or you need something, you're really excited, maybe you want to take a little trip with your friends somewhere or whatever, and then suddenly it becomes a big deal and you turn and go, wait a second, what have you, I haven't been. So that's what you have your bucket of money for, right? So I think boundaries through a budget and through those, you know, those weekly allowances, monthly allowances, however you're going to do it. But I say do it with cash in hand, and then let them spend until they run out of money, and then they're cut off, and you do the same thing. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Okay. I got a question about what investments and mutual funds, ETFs, do I look at? Any investing recommendations for college students? Okay. The only thing I am going to recommend out loud publicly are S&P 500 index funds. All right. They aren't glamorous in many people's eyes, but boy, do they do well. So different brokerage companies like a Fidelity or a Vanguard have S&P, and it's easy to Google what are Fidelity's S&P 500 index funds. They are called that because the companies, so mutual funds or index funds are a type of mutual fund. Any mutual fund really holds a bunch of stocks, right? And that fund, when you buy a share of that fund, you're buying pieces of other shares of stock. Okay. And you can go and see on, you know, one of the financial websites, you know, what are those stocks that they hold, you know, what are their highest 10 stocks that they hold. Sometimes there's technology mutual funds. Sometimes there's healthcare mutual funds. There's energy mutual funds. But S&P really takes the top 50 S&P companies, like the most successful, I don't know if it's profitable, I forget the financial measurement of the companies in the United States, and those are their top holdings. So basically you're buying little slices of the best companies that are in the United States, or the S&P 500. And when did I say 50? But anyway, it's the top companies. But when, you know, and one drops out and is suddenly not performing as well as it used to, not a top company in the United States anymore, it actually falls off their investment portfolio and another company gets bumped up in there. So S&P 500 index funds, the other piece of it is the management fees that are kind of like these hidden behind the scene costs that kind of chip away at your profits when you invest in a particular fund are so low because they're kind of on autopilot. Like there's no big decision makers behind these funds that you have to pay to manage it, because it's really just saying, what are the top S&P companies? Okay, that's where our money, that's what stock we're going to invest in. And it's so simple that they don't have to have these huge management fees. They have all kinds of historic performance. If you want to research that, like what have they averaged over the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? It's very solid. They've done very well. And so, you know, that's my number one recommendation, especially when you're in college, coming out of college. I mean, as you learn more about certain industries and you figure out what your risk tolerance is and have different ideas of what you personally want to invest in, then you can make maybe more sophisticated decisions around the type of funds you want to invest in. But if you straight up go with an S&P 500 index fund, you're going to be solid. And so I will say that publicly. I do have other mutual funds as well, based on, you know, things I am interested in and know more about, and companies I like. But I feel like, you know, long-term investing, which is really what I preach. I don't do short-term investing. Index funds all the way. Okay, hope that helps you, Matt. Let's see. IRA. Oh, follow up on IRA questions. Are they traditional accounts? Are my IRAs traditional IRAs? Or you're saying, are they Roth? I believe the maximum contribution for couples per year is $6,000. That's not for couples, that's per person. Are there advantages of splitting that among several IRA accounts? An IRA account is an IRA account. It's really where, so the account itself is an individual retirement account. And then what funds you pick to put your money in within that account is another decision. There would be no reason, unless you wanted to do some certain funds with different brokerages. Like I want to have a couple investments in Fidelity, you know, funds versus Vanguard, and so I'm going to split it up. But it's actually $6,000 per person. But from a traditional and Roth, and I am totally not the expert to tell you all the details, but there's a salary, there's a maximum salary or maximum income requirement that you have to fall within, like for the IRA. You have to be under a certain amount of income for a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA. And so we have them both, because we've, you know, from years past, and then years where we exceeded the requirement. So the maximum requirement. So we have both. Everyone I know recommends, if you qualify for the Roth IRA, do the Roth IRA all day long. Then the taxes are taken out up front, and then you don't pay taxes on them once you get the distributions from them when you're retired, versus traditional, when you pull your money out of an IRA, you get taxed. So do your research. I'm not a financial advisor, but do your research on the differences between those IRAs. But that's kind of the general overview, and as far as, you know, my experience and what we've done. All right, hope that helps. Okay, do you have any suggestions of how to approach the way you spend money when you are dating someone? I say, I mean, again, open communication, that you are intentional in talking about, look, I feel like, you know, that we both should, I don't want to say pull our weight here, but that if you're in the mindset of like, I think we should just, you know, we should do things 50-50 and kind of alternate on things. I mean, during my dating years, even, you know, I used to do that all the time, where we would kind of adjust, or we'd kind of know ahead of time, like, hey, let's go out to dinner tonight. It's on me. You know, we would talk about that, and it wasn't an awkward discussion. I mean, again, you know, if you think that there's the potential to be in a relationship with someone you're dating for a long time, transparency, open communication, you might as well dig in to the money and talk about who's, you know, who's going to pay for what, or saying, I feel like we both should just, you know, 50-50. I make money, you make money. We don't have to deal with the traditional roles that the man always pays or whatever. I think you can really do do kind of a 50-50 split. I don't know, just make it a light conversation, and, you know, even offer like, hey, let's go get pizza. And again, it's on me, like offering to do that. And again, I'm really big on being equals all along with relationships. I know that there are traditional man versus woman role, female versus male roles, right? You know, especially when I was younger, right? It was even more so, but that's just not ever been my mentality. I think everybody needs to pull their weight when it comes to, you know, whether it's dating or marriage or whatever. All right. Let's see. Did I get all of them? What else are we? I think I might have been through all of them. Let's see. Am I missing anything? If anything was in the chat, I did not catch that, but I know Ashley was putting some notes out there for folks.
Yeah. So I think that you answered most all of those questions, and thanks everyone for asking those questions. Those were great. Thanks for coming to our workshops today, and thank you so much, Kara, again for coming to speak with us. You're just
Yes,
full of tips.
thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I hope it was helpful to some of you. And again, even just thinking through some of these things, whether you agree with me or not, I feel like will go a long way. And even talking about the fact that you attended this with your significant other can open up, the door to potentially talk about something more specific that you think you need to address in your own relationship. So good luck, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to recommend, if all of you have any further questions for Kara, feel free to reach out on Instagram. She's
100%. Yes,
interactive from my experience.
right. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, so it's aunt.kara, and I get plenty of DMs, and I try to be as responsive as I can. And I'd love to hear from you. Let me know though that, like, if you do reach out to me, let me know that you were in on this, just for me to have that context, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Yeah. I also have to shout out our office too. I'm sure if you're attending this workshop, you know the services that we offer on campus, the free financial counseling, but we're always happy to meet with couples as well. And those are some of the best appointments because we get kind of two perspectives in the appointment. But yeah, thanks again, everyone. I put a link to Kara's website as well in the chat, and then a link to the follow-up survey. I'll post this on YouTube as well. We did get a question, Kara, if you would be willing to share your PowerPoint. If you would mind emailing that to me, and then I can forward it on participants.
I can do that.
Okay.
I sure can.
Sounds great. Well, thanks everyone. Have a good day. Bye,
Right.
Kara.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.